Imagine this. Federal prosecutors estimate that up to $9 billion meant for kids, the disabled, the poor, was stolen in one state alone. $9 billion. Auditors then catch government employees fabricating and backdating documents to hide the mess. And the governor of that state is now being told that either he resigns or he's leaving office in handcuffs. This isn't a movie plot. This is Minnesota. And the Tim Walz scandal is spiraling into something that could reshape the entire debate over welfare, immigration, and accountability in blue state America for generations to come. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to hear anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Meet Minnesota's own legislative auditor, Judy Randall. She's not a politician. She's not a pundit. She's a career numbers and paperwork person with nearly 30 years in the office of the legislative auditor. And yet, despite those years of experience, nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared her for what she was about to encounter. She called it, quote, the most egregious case of corruption and fraud she's ever seen. Her team dug into the Behavioral Health Administration at Minnesota's Department of Human Services, the division that hands out roughly $200 million a year in grants for mental health and addiction treatment. And what she found wasn't just sloppiness. It was a systemic effort to rewrite history on paper. Auditors asked for routine oversight documents, things like proof of site visits, monitoring, proof that services were actually delivered, just basic stuff. At first, astonishingly, the DHS said, we don't have those files. Those files don't exist. And then once auditors pressed them saying, yes, you do, because legally they have to exist, suddenly documents several weeks later appeared. And at least one was created from scratch and backdated by 2 years to make it look like it had always been there. And they found that that was the pattern. They fabricated the documentation. The auditor, Judy Randall, she told lawmakers that multiple employees in the Behavioral Health Administration created or backdated documents after the audit began across the entire grant oversight process. She called it a systemic effort to deceive. It wasn't simply forgetting to upload a PDF. These are officials knowingly falsifying the record to make it look like oversight happened when in fact it did not, and intentionally did not. And the paper trail gets worse. One grantee tied to a North Minneapolis church, the Wellness Collaborative through Zion Baptist, received a $1.6 million grant. Auditors found that DHS had no documentation whatsoever to prove that the services taxpayers paid for were ever delivered, even as church representatives insist they did the work and are now being scapegoated. In another case highlighted to Congress, a grantee was paid nearly $680,000 for a single month of work. Think about that, $680,000 for a single month, and yet couldn't produce a single invoice or participant data. Oh, and you'll love this. The grant agreement totaled about $1.6 million, and the state employee who approved the money left the DHS within days. And then guess where that former state employee went to work? They went to work for that very same grantee. Talking about a revolving door. So we've actually caught at least one instance where a DHS worker approved $1 million grant without any justification, then quit his or her DHS job and went on to work for the very organization that this now former DHS worker gave over $1 million to. I mean, the corruption is so patently blatant, it defies belief. But this is Minnesota. This is Tim Walz's Minnesota. This is the fraud that we're finding wasn't merely incidental. It wasn't peripheral. It was woven in and throughout the entire state and local government system. Tim Walz is the fraud. Mayor Jacob Fry is the fraud. Ilhan Omar is the fraud. On top of that, auditors found DHS failed to conduct required site visits. You know, like the ones that independent journalist Nick Shirley recently did when he found this.
Here at Future Leaders Early Learning Center, this building received over $3 million. Hello, how are you? I would like to see if I could bring little Joey, my son little Joey here. Is there paperwork or can I check out the daycare? No? Why can't I check out the daycare?
It's not here.
Okay, but if can I get paperwork or anything to submit my son little Joey to come in here to daycare? We'd really like to put Joey in this daycare. We've heard great things.
Business card?
No, I would like your business card actually.
You talk to your manager.
Okay, can I speak with somebody? Where are the children at? Are there children here today?
No.
No children.
Yes.
Why are there no children?
Two of Mexico.
Would my son little Joey have friends to play with here?
No.
No.
Yes.
No friends for little Joey.
Yes. Sorry.
Dang it. Well, have a great rest of your day.
So it shouldn't surprise you that when the auditors themselves went out to conduct the site visits, they too discovered what they called, quote, serious concerns that services were not being provided at all. In fact, they found that fewer than 1 in 5 surveyed DHS workers even felt trained to properly scrutinize how grant money was being spent. The DHS audit uncovered nothing short of mass corruption, fraud, and incompetence. Oh, and by the way, did I mention, to add insult to injury, this was already the second audit of that same division. The previous audit caught many of the same failures, so these were repeat problems that had not been fixed despite earlier warnings. Obviously, at some point, incompetence stops being a believable excuse. Now, zoom out. While Minnesota's bureaucracy was fabricating paperwork after the fact, federal investigators were uncovering what they say could be the largest welfare and Medicaid fraud crisis in modern U.S. history. An estimated $9 billion stolen through schemes tied to child care, autism services, housing, Medicaid programs. The Feeding Our Future scandal alone, the one that centered on that Somali restaurant that claimed it was feeding hungry kids. I think they're the ones who, where Ilhan Omar did her celebration banquet after her 2018 congressional victory. That scandal alone involved over $250 million stolen from taxpayers. 78 defendants have been charged. Almost all of them, over 90%, are of Somali descent. Federal prosecutors in the House Oversight Committee now say that that scandal was just the tip of the iceberg. One piece of a much broader web of fraud that pervades Minnesota's social services system. And one man, the governor, has been overseeing it all for years. And now his reckoning is at hand. And speaking of a reckoning, you know, the same nefarious corrupt forces that have infested Minnesota's government have been eating away at your savings now for years at a federal level. Now, of course, we're talking about inflation, where reckless Federal Reserve policies have been relentlessly devaluing our dollars for decades. Here's a not-so-fun fact for you. Whatever money you had saved up in 2020 has already lost 22% of its value. There are riots over in Tehran over things like this, gang. I mean, your savings didn't shrink. They got robbed slowly and quietly by the hidden tax called inflation. And here's what makes this explosive. Most Americans have 100% of their retirement tied to paper assets, all dependent on a system that just keeps printing more dollars. But thankfully, there's a way to protect what you've worked so hard to build, and that's with physical gold and silver. And that's why I turned to Augusta Precious Metals, the absolute best in the business. Augusta Precious Metals has been helping Americans diversify with physical gold for over a decade. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, thousands of satisfied customers, and unmatched transparency. I cannot recommend them enough. Go to turleybuysgold.com right now or text Turley to 35052 to get their free information guide. And here's what you need to understand. This isn't about liquidating everything. This is about repositioning a portion of your savings. This stays inside your IRA or your 401k. No taxes, no penalties. As the best and clear leader in their field with my seal of approval, Augusta Precious Metals makes it simple. It starts with that free guide, then a one-on-one educational call. No obligation, no pressure. They're patriots just like us. You're going to love chatting with them. This is about stability, clarity, and a plan that makes sense in a world that feels increasingly chaotic. Augusta Precious Metals, the best at what they do, the ones I trust, and the ones I recommend to you. Go to turleybuysgold.com or text Turley to 35052. That's 35052 and get your free guide today. You'll sleep better tonight knowing you have a plan. In Washington, the House Oversight Committee held a hearing literally entitled Oversight of Fraud and Misuse of Federal Funds in Minnesota. Chairman James Comer accused Tampon Tim, along with Attorney General Keith Ellison, of being complicit in the rampant fraud. Republican House Majority Whip Tom Emmer took it further. He called on Walz to resign, warning that if he does not, he might be leaving office in cuffs. Now, for me, I'm not particularly sure why it's an either or. Okay? Just like that corrupt judge, what was her name, Dugan of Milwaukee, who was found guilty of a felony in trying to help an illegal alien escape from law enforcement, right, from her own court. She had to resign and she's facing jail, right? The two aren't mutually exclusive. Nevertheless, as we all know, Walz did drop out of the race for governor. He won't be seeking another term in office. So this scandal clearly has legs. It's already claimed at least partially a victim. It's already obliterated his political future, at least at a national level. But we're more and more learning about Walz's own involvement in this culture of corruption at the highest level of Minnesota politics. We're now finding out that whistleblowers, we're talking hundreds of social workers and government employees, raised alarms about this fraud years ago, but they were suppressed. Those concerns were not just ignored, they were openly and overtly opposed by Tim Walz himself. In fact, there are reports that he and his administration were blatantly intimidating and threatening these whistleblowers with retaliation if they went public. So it looks like his dropping out of the gubernatorial race is just the first of the consequences that Walz will be inevitably facing. In the meantime, the Trump administration is escalating. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins has frozen roughly $130 million in USDA funding to Minnesota and Minneapolis over massive fraud and lack of accountability. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has announced a massive IRS audit of financial institutions that facilitated the laundering of Minnesota funds. Vice President J.D. Vance announced a new Assistant Attorney General position with nationwide jurisdiction over fraud, saying its work will start in Minnesota and then expand across the country. Homeland Security agents and a multi-agency task force are already, of course, on the ground in Minneapolis, and this is all just the prelude. Make no mistake, these are just the opening credits to the movie. Representative Comer has called Walz and Ellison to testify under oath in a congressional hearing where they'll have to answer on camera whether they were clueless or complicit or even a bit of both while billions vanished and state workers were allegedly forging the records. Virtually every single department of the federal government is now involved in this. The DOJ, the Agriculture Department because of the food programs, the Department of Education, or at least what's left of it, because of the learning programs, or better, the leering programs. Health and Human Services, the Treasury Department, of course, ICE and Homeland Security, since so much of the fraud was being perpetrated by Somali nationals. The SEC, because of interstate activity. Virtually every single federal department is swooping down on this scandal and has a vested interest in prosecuting and punishing all those involved. You've been wanting to see handcuffs? Well, with this latest scandal, you may indeed be getting your wish. Before you go, gang, if you want to be part of a community where faith, family, and freedom come alive, check out the Courageous Patriot Club. I love for you to see what this community is all about. You can watch a free preview of Turley Walks, one of my exclusive weekly series. Head on over to turley.pub/turleywalks.